My name is Beatrice Thompson. I'm 61 years old and I've lived in Atlanta, Georgia my whole life. This house on Peachtree Street, my husband Leonard and I bought it in 1989 with our own hard-earned money. Leonard was a postal worker for 32 years before the stroke took him 5 years ago. Left me this house, a pension, and our son Terrence. Terrence was our miracle baby. We tried for 10 years before God blessed us with him. That boy was everything to me and Leonard. We gave him the world, put him through Morehouse College, helped him get his first apartment when he got that engineering job at Delta. I was so proud, I cried the day he got his degree. Then, 2 years ago, he brought her home. Vanessa Monroe walked into my living room like she owned it. Designer everything. Long box braids down to her waist, nails so long I don't know how she typed. And the smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mama, this is Vanessa," Terrence said, and his voice had that tone, that I'm already gone tone that mothers recognize. "Mrs. Thompson, it's so wonderful to finally meet you," Vanessa purred, giving me a hug that felt like hugging a mannequin. "Terrence has told you so much about me." We sat down for Sunday dinner. I had made my famous fried catfish, collard greens, cornbread, and peach cobbler. Terrence ate like he'd been starving. Vanessa picked at her plate like the food might bite back. "Something wrong with the food, baby?" I asked. "Oh no, Mrs. Thompson," she said with that fake smile. "I'm just on a cleanse right now, detoxing. But I'm sure it's delicious." Strike one. Over the next few months, Vanessa slowly took over Terrence's life. First, she helped him organize his finances. Then she suggested he get a new car because his Toyota wasn't professional enough for someone at his level. Then she started making excuses why they couldn't come to Sunday dinner. "Mama, we're busy," Terrence would say when I called. "Doing what, baby?" "Vanessa has us on a schedule. Gym in the morning, meal prep, networking events. She's helping me level up my life." Level up? Like he wasn't already successful. Like the life I'd helped him build wasn't good enough. 6 months after they started dating, Terrence called with big news. "Mama, I proposed. Vanessa said yes." My heart should have been happy. Instead, I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. But I said the right things. "Congratulations, baby. When's the wedding? How can I help?" "Actually, Mama, Vanessa wants to meet you for lunch tomorrow. She has some ideas about the wedding." The next day, we met at some fancy restaurant in Buckhead, the kind where the menu doesn't have prices and the portions are tiny. Vanessa was already there sipping something green that probably cost $15. "Mrs. Thompson," she stood up and air-kissed both my cheeks. "I'm so glad you could make it." I sat down, and before I could even order, she pulled out her iPad. "So, I've been planning our dream wedding," she started, swiping through photos. "Venue at the Ritz-Carlton, rose garden ceremony, string quartet, designer dress from New York, 5-tier cake, 200 guests." My head was spinning. "That sounds expensive, baby." "Well," she leaned forward, her voice dropping to that fake concern tone. "Terrence and I are saving for our future. We're looking at houses, planning for babies, building our empire. So we were hoping you could help with the wedding costs, as the groom's mother. It's traditional." "How much are we talking?" She turned the iPad toward me, a spreadsheet. Line items, total at the bottom, $65,000. I almost choked on my water. $65,000? "Well, we figured you'd cover about 40. Terrence and I can manage the rest. Mrs. Thompson, you do want your only son to have the wedding of his dreams, right? After all, you've always been there for him. Surely you wouldn't stop now." There it was. The manipulation, the guilt trip, the good mother test. I should have said no right there, but I didn't because she knew exactly which buttons to push. I'll see what I can do, I heard myself say. Over the next year, I bled money, wedding deposits, dress alterations, bridal shower in Miami that I wasn't even invited to but somehow paid for. I pulled from my savings, took out $20,000 from my retirement account, even borrowed $8,000 from my sister Clara. $40,000. That's what I gave them. And when the wedding came, my name wasn't on the invitation. I sat at table 12 in the back with distant cousins I barely knew. Vanessa's mama sat at the head table like the Queen of Sheba. After the wedding, they moved into a luxury apartment in Midtown, and suddenly every conversation with Terrence was about money. Mama, can you help us with the security deposit? Mama, Vanessa's car broke down. Mama, we're short on rent this month. Always something, always my wallet opening. I kept a notebook, just like I'd done when Terrence was young and I was tracking his allowance. Every check, every Zelle transfer, every emergency. In 1 year of marriage, I gave them another $28,000.
That's $68,000 total. More than my yearly pension. More than Leonard left me in the bank. That was my retirement, my security, my future. But Vanessa wanted more. Thanksgiving 2024. I invited them over like I always did. To my surprise, Vanessa said yes. We'll be there at 2 p.m., Mrs. Thompson, and actually, we have something important to discuss with you. Something important. My stomach twisted, but I pushed the feeling down. I cooked for 2 days straight. Turkey with my secret seasoning, dressing with sage and onions, sweet potato casserole with the marshmallow topping Terrence loved, mac and cheese, greens with smoked turkey, cranberry sauce from scratch, cornbread, 2 pies, sweet potato, and pecan. The house smelled like heaven. I set the table with my good china, the set Leonard gave me for our 20th anniversary, lit candles, put on Mahalia Jackson in the background. Everything was perfect. They arrived at 3:15, over an hour late, no apology. Vanessa walked in wearing a white pantsuit like she was going to a business meeting, not Thanksgiving dinner. Terrence looked tired, dark circles under his eyes. Sorry we're late, Mama, he mumbled, kissing my cheek. Traffic. No problem, baby. Y'all hungry? We sat down, I said grace, thanking God for family, for blessings, for this food. When I opened my eyes, Vanessa was scrolling on her phone. Food looks good, Mama, Terrence said, loading his plate. Vanessa took tiny portions of everything, then spent more time rearranging the food than eating it. So, I said, trying to make conversation, how's work going, baby? They treating you good at Delta? Before Terrence could answer, Vanessa cut in. Actually, Mrs. Thompson, that's what we wanted to talk to you about. Terrence is at a crossroads in his career. He's been offered an incredible opportunity to start his own consulting firm, but it requires investment capital. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. Investment capital? Yes, about $50,000 to get started. Rent for office space, equipment, marketing, legal fees. It's a huge opportunity. $50,000? I looked at Terrence. Baby, is this what you want? Terrence wouldn't meet my eyes. Vanessa thinks it's a good move. She says I'm not reaching my potential at Delta. But you have a good job, I said carefully. Benefits, retirement, security. Vanessa's smile hardened. Mrs. Thompson, with all due respect, that's old school thinking. Terrence is meant for more than being someone's employee. He's a leader, a visionary. And if his own mother doesn't believe in him enough to invest in his future, well, she let that hang in the air like a threat. I didn't say I don't believe in him," I protested. "I'm just being practical. $50,000 is a lot of money." "Money you have," Vanessa said, and her voice went cold. "This house is paid off. You have savings, Leonard's life insurance. You're sitting on assets while your son is struggling to build his empire." "I'm not struggling, Vanessa," Terrence finally spoke up, but his voice was weak. "Yes, you are," she snapped at him, then turning back to me with that fake sweetness. "Mrs. Thompson, we're not asking for a handout. We're offering you an investment opportunity, 20% stake in Terrence's company. You'll make your money back and more." I sat there, my Thanksgiving dinner getting cold, and I felt something shift inside me. This woman had already taken $68,000 from me. Now she wanted $50,000 more. And she was using my own son to manipulate me. "I need to think about it," I said. Vanessa's face changed. The mask slipped for just a second, and I saw pure rage underneath. "Think about it?" She put down her fork with a clatter. "Mrs. Thompson, opportunities don't wait. Terrence needs this now. The lease on the office space expires next week. If we don't move fast, someone else will snatch it up." Then I guess someone else will snatch it up, because I'm not making a decision about $50,000 at Thanksgiving dinner. Vanessa stood up. "Terrence, let's go." "But Mama cooked all this food," he started. "Now, Terrence." My son looked at me with something like apology in his eyes, then stood up and followed his wife to the door. "You're making a mistake, Mrs. Thompson, a big mistake. We won't forget this." And they left me sitting there alone at my Thanksgiving table with enough food for 10 people and a cold, heavy feeling in my chest. I sat there for a long time, staring at the empty chairs. Then I did something I should have done a year ago. I opened my laptop and typed into Google, "Vanessa Monroe, Atlanta." What I found made my blood run cold. The first result that came up was a wedding announcement from 2019. Vanessa Monroe marries David Richardson in Charleston, South Carolina. David Richardson, not Terrence Thompson. My hands started shaking as I clicked the link. There was a photo. Vanessa in a white dress, younger looking, with shorter hair, standing next to a tall, handsome black man in a tuxedo. The caption read, "The happy couple will reside in Charleston, where David works as a financial advisor." Financial advisor. Money man. Just like she'd wanted Terrence to become. I kept scrolling. More results. A divorce filing from 2020. Monroe versus Richardson. Dissolution of marriage. Charleston County Court. 1 year. They'd been married for 1 year. I dug deeper. Found a LinkedIn profile for David Richardson. His current status: taking time off to recover and rebuild. His last job ended in 2021. Before that, he'd worked at a prestigious investment firm. Something wasn't right. I could feel it in my bones, the same way I'd felt something wrong the first time Vanessa walked into my house. I called my sister Clara. She answered on the second ring. "Bia? Girl, it's almost 11 p.m. You okay?" "Clara, I need you to do something for me. You remember that investigator you used when you were going through your divorce?" "Raymond? Yeah, he's good. Why?" "I need his number, tonight." Clara didn't ask questions. She just texted me the contact. That's what sisters do. I called Raymond first thing Friday morning. By Tuesday, he was sitting in my living room with a folder full of papers. Raymond Mitchell was a no-nonsense man in his 50s, ex-police detective turned private investigator. He laid the folder on my coffee table. "Mrs. Thompson, what I've found is disturbing." He pulled out the first document, a police report from Charleston dated March 2020, filed by David Richardson's mother, Mrs. Helen Richardson. David's mother reported suspected financial elder abuse.
She claimed Vanessa had manipulated David into taking out loans against her property without her knowledge. My stomach dropped. The case was investigated but eventually dropped due to lack of evidence. But Mrs. Richardson went on record saying Vanessa had isolated David from his family, controlled his finances, and pressured him to get access to his mother's assets. "Oh my God," I whispered. "It gets worse," Raymond continued. "Vanessa Monroe isn't her real name. She was born Vanessa Butler in Jacksonville, Florida. She's used at least 3 different last names in the past 10 years. He showed me more papers. Marriage certificates of someone named Anthony Monroe in 2017, divorced in 2018. Before that, a marriage to James Butler, her first husband, in 2015, divorced in 2016. 3 marriages in 9 years? I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
4 if you count Terrence. And there's a pattern. All the men were successful. All had widowed or elderly mothers with property, and in every case, the marriages ended within 2 years, with the men financially devastated. Raymond pulled out one more document. This is the most troubling part. I found a sealed case file in Jacksonville. Vanessa was investigated for identity theft and fraud in 2014. The case was dismissed on a technicality, but the detective's notes suggest she was running a sophisticated scam targeting vulnerable families. I felt sick. This woman was in my house, married to my son, and she had a decade-long history of destroying families. "What do I do?" I asked Raymond. "First, you protect yourself, your assets, your property. Second, you document everything. Every interaction, every request for money, every threat. Third, you talk to a lawyer about how to protect your son without alienating him completely. He won't believe me. He's so deep under her spell. Then, you gather evidence that's undeniable, and you be ready for when she makes her next move. Because she will, Mrs. Thompson. Women like this always escalate." After Raymond left, I sat with those papers for hours, looking at photos of David Richardson, Anthony Monroe, James Butler. All of them looked like broken men in their current photos. LinkedIn profiles with gaps in employment, Facebook pages with sad posts about starting over. My baby boy was next in line. That evening, I called my best friend Sharon. We'd known each other since nursing school 40 years ago. "Sharon, I need to talk. Can you come over?" She was there in 20 minutes with a bottle of wine and her listening ears. I showed her everything. The documents, the pattern, the history. "Lord have mercy," Sharon said, reading through it all. "B, you have to tell Terrence. He won't listen. You saw how he left on Thanksgiving. She's got complete control over him." "Then you show him the evidence. Print all of this out, sit him down." "What if that pushes him away completely? What if he chooses her?" Sharon took my hand. "Baby, he's already chosen her. But you can't protect him by keeping the secret. If you really love that boy, you tell him the truth and pray he wakes up before it's too late." The next day, I called Terrence. He didn't answer. I texted, "Baby, I need to see you. Alone. It's important." 3 hours later, he texted back. "Can't do right now, Mama. Busy with the business launch." So, she'd convinced him to do it anyway, without my money, which meant she'd found another source. My chest tightened. I tried again. "Terrence, please, just 1 hour. I have something to show you." "Mama, whatever it is, it can wait." But it couldn't wait, because while I'd been researching Vanessa, she'd been making her own moves. 2 days later, I got a letter in the mail, official looking, from Vanessa's lawyer. It was a notice of intent to file a claim. They were alleging that I had verbally agreed to invest $50,000 in Terrence's business and was now backing out, causing them financial harm. They were demanding either the $50,000 or $75,000 in damages for lost opportunity.
I couldn't breathe. This woman was actually suing me for money I never agreed to give. I called Diane Foster, the lawyer Raymond had recommended. Mrs. Thompson, this is intimidation. They don't have a case, but you need to respond formally, and you need to stop all communication with them unless it goes through me. What about Terrence? That's my son. I understand, but legally, anything you say can be twisted. Let me handle this. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about those other mothers, Helen Richardson, who lost her house, the others whose names I didn't even know yet, women who'd loved their sons and trusted their daughters-in-law, women who'd been destroyed. I wasn't going to be one of them, not without a fight.
Diane filed our response to Vanessa's lawyer within 48 hours. A cease and desist letter that made it crystal clear I had never agreed to any business investment, there was no verbal contract, and any further harassment would result in legal action. But that's not what broke my heart. What broke my heart was the text I got from Terrence that same day. "Mama, how could you? We needed you, and you're attacking us with lawyers? Vanessa was right about you." I stared at that message for 10 minutes. Vanessa was right about you. What had she been saying about me behind my back? I called him immediately. It went to voicemail. "Terrence, baby, please call me back. There are things you don't know about Vanessa. Important things. I'm not attacking you. I'm trying to protect you. Please, just give me 1 hour to explain." He didn't call back. Sharon came over that evening and found me crying at my kitchen table. "He thinks I'm the villain," I sobbed. "My own son thinks I'm trying to hurt him." "Because she's poisoned his mind," Sharon said firmly. "Bia, manipulators are experts at playing the victim. She's probably been telling him for months that you're controlling, that you don't support his dreams, that you're jealous of their relationship. But I've given them everything. And that's exactly what makes you dangerous to her plans. You know the truth. You see through her. So she has to turn him against you before you can expose her." Sharon was right. I knew she was right. But knowing didn't make it hurt any less. The next Sunday, I went to church like I always did. Pastor Williams preached about spiritual warfare, about standing firm in the face of evil. After service, several of my church sisters came up to me. "Sister Beatrice, we've been praying for you," said Mother Jenkins, an 80-year-old saint who'd been at that church for 50 years. "We heard about your troubles with your daughter-in-law." I shouldn't have been surprised. Black church communities talk, but I was grateful for the support. "Thank you, Mother Jenkins. Baby, let me tell you something," she said, taking my hand in her weathered ones. "I've lived a long time. I've seen women like that girl come and go. They're wolves in designer clothing, but the truth always comes to light. Always. You stand firm, you protect what's yours, and you pray for your son to wake up." 3 days later, Diane calls with news. "Mrs. Thompson, I did some digging into the business Terrence is supposedly starting. The LLC was filed 2 months ago. Guess who's listed as the primary owner?" "Terrence?" "Vanessa. Terrence is listed as a 30% minority stakeholder. She owns 70%. My blood ran cold. But it's supposed to be his company. On paper, she controls it. And Mrs. Thompson, there's more. I found the lease agreement for the office space. It's a 5-year lease at $4,000 per month. Guess who the guarantor is?" "Please don't say." "Helen Richardson, David's mother. She co-signed the lease before Vanessa and David divorced." The room spun. How was that possible? I thought she lost everything. She did lose her house, but she still had her name, her credit. Vanessa probably convinced David to have his mother co-sign under the guise of supporting their business.
Now Helen is on the hook for $240,000 worth of lease payments if they default. We have to warn her, I said immediately. I already reached out. She's willing to talk to you. 2 days later, I was on a Zoom call with Helen Richardson. She looked older than her 67 years, her face lined with stress and sadness. "Mrs. Thompson," she said, her voice tired. "I wish I could say I'm surprised, but I'm not. When Raymond told me Vanessa had married again, I knew this would happen." "Why didn't you warn anyone?" I asked, not accusatory, just curious. "I tried. I contacted her new husband through LinkedIn. He blocked me. She'd already told him I was a bitter, crazy ex-mother-in-law who couldn't accept their love. It's what she does. She inoculates them against the truth before the truth can reach them." Helen pulled out a folder of her own. "I've been documenting everything since my nightmare ended. Police reports, court filings, bank statements. I want to help you stop her, Mrs. Thompson, before she does to Terrence what she did to my David." "How is David now?" I asked gently. Helen's eyes filled with tears. "He's alive, barely. He had a breakdown last year. He's living with me now, trying to rebuild his life. He's in therapy, on medication for depression and anxiety. Vanessa, Terrence is listed as a 30% minority stakeholder. She owns 70%. My blood ran cold. But it's supposed to be his company. On paper, she controls it. And Mrs. Thompson, there's more. I found the lease agreement for the office space. It's a 5-year lease at $4,000 per month. Guess who the guarantor is? Please don't say Helen Richardson, David's mother. She co-signed the lease before Vanessa and David divorced." The room spun. How was that possible? I thought she lost everything. She did lose her house, but she still had her nome, her credit. Vanessa probably convinced David to have his mother co-sign under the guise of supporting their business. Now, Helen is on the hook for $240,000 worth of lease payments if they default. "We have to warn her," I said immediately. "I already reached out. She's willing to talk to you." 2 days later, I was on a Zoom call with Helen Richardson. She looked older than her 67 years, her face lined with stress and sadness. "Mrs. Thompson," she said, her voice tired, "I wish I could say I'm surprised, but I'm not. When Raymond told me Vanessa had married again, I knew this would happen. Why didn't you warn anyone?" I asked, not accusatory, just curious. "I tried. I contacted her new husband through LinkedIn. He blocked me. She'd already told him I was a bitter, crazy ex-mother-in-law who couldn't accept their love. It's what she does. She inoculates them against the truth before the truth can reach them." Helen pulled out a folder of her own. "I've been documenting everything since my nightmare ended. Police reports, court filings, bank statements. I want to help you stop her, Mrs. Thompson, before she does to Terrence what she did to my David." "How is David now?" I asked gently. Helen's eyes filled with tears. "He's alive, barely. He had a breakdown last year. He's living with me now, trying to rebuild his life. He's in therapy, on medication for depression and anxiety. That woman destroyed my son." The words hit me like a physical blow. That could be Terrence in 2 years, broken, depressed, living in my basement because he'd lost everything. "I won't let that happen," I said firmly. "I won't." Helen nodded. "Then we fight together. I'll send you everything I have. You share it with your lawyer. And when the time is right, we confront her with everything." After the call, I sat in my living room staring at my phone. I pulled up the family photo from last Christmas. Me, Terrence, and Vanessa. We were smiling. But looking at it now, I could see the fakeness in Vanessa's smile, the possessive way her hand gripped Terrence's arm, the subtle way she'd positioned herself between me and my son in the photo. She'd been planning this all along. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Mrs. Thompson? A man's voice. Young. Nervous. My name is Anthony Monroe. I think we need to talk about Vanessa. My heart started pounding. Anthony, you were married to her? For 8 terrible months, Mrs. Thompson. I heard through a mutual friend that she's married again. I had to call. You need to know what you're dealing with. We talked for an hour. Anthony told me his story, how Vanessa had love-bombed him, isolated him from his family, convinced him to take out loans for their future, how she tried to get him to pressure his mother into reverse mortgaging her house. I finally woke up when I found her laptop open, Anthony said. She had a folder labeled Target Research. They were files on my mother, her property value, her assets, her health issues. Mrs. Thompson, she had been researching my mother before she even met me. Oh, God, I whispered. She's a predator, a professional con artist, and she's good at what she does. I lost $35,000 before I got out. My credit score dropped 200 points. My relationship with my mother was almost destroyed. Why didn't you press charges? I tried. The police said it was a civil matter. She had covered her tracks too well. Everything looked like gifts or loans between a married couple. There was no proof of fraud. After Anthony hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time. 3 ex-husbands, 3 destroyed families, and now my son was number 4. But I had something the others didn't have. I had all of them. Helen, Anthony, David's story, a pattern so clear that even Terrence would have to see it. The question was, how do I get him to listen? The answer came the next morning, a text from Terrence. Mama, can you come to the house? We need to talk. Alone. Don't bring lawyers. My hands shook as I texted back, when? Tomorrow at 2 p.m. Vanessa will be at a hair appointment. He wanted to talk without her. That meant something. Maybe the spell was cracking. Maybe my baby boy was starting to wake up. I spent all night preparing. I printed everything. Every document, every statement from the ex-husbands, every police report. I organized it into a folder labeled simply, The Truth. Tomorrow, Terrence would learn who he'd really married, and I prayed with everything in me that it wasn't too late. I arrived at Terrence's apartment at exactly 2 p.m. My hands were sweating as I held the folder. I'd barely slept, running through every possible scenario in my head. What if he didn't believe me? What if Vanessa came home early? What if this pushed him away forever? But I had to try. I couldn't save my son if he didn't know he needed saving. Terrence opened the door looking exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. He'd lost weight, his hair needed cutting. This wasn't the sharp, confident young man who'd graduated from Morehouse. This was someone who was drowning. Hey, Mama, he said quietly, stepping aside to let me in. The apartment was immaculate, too immaculate, like a showroom, not a home. Everything white and gray and perfectly arranged. No personal touches, no photos of us, just wedding pictures of him and Vanessa everywhere. You want something to drink? He asked. No, maybe, I'm fine. Let's just talk. We sat on the couch, an uncomfortable distance between us. Terrence stared at his hands. Mama, I asked you here because I need to understand something. Why are you fighting us so hard? Why did you send those lawyers? Why can't you just be happy for me? My heart broke. Baby, I am happy when you're happy. But Terrence, you're not happy. Look at yourself. When's the last time you smiled? Really smiled? I'm just stressed. The business is... There is no business, I interrupted gently, or at least not the way you think there is. I opened the folder. Terrence, I need you to listen to me. Really listen. Don't interrupt, don't get defensive. Just hear what I have to say. Something in my voice must have reached him because he nodded. I started with the LLC documents. Your business, the one you think you're building. You own 30%, Vanessa owns 70%. Did you know that? His face went pale. No, she said we were equal partners. That's lie number 1. Here's lie number 2. I pulled out the next document. Vanessa Monroe isn't her real name. She was born Vanessa Butler. She's been married 3 times before you. 3 times, Terrence. All within the last 9 years. That's impossible. She told me I was her first husband. I know, baby, but here are the marriage certificates. James Butler in 2015, Anthony Monroe in 2017, David Richardson in 2019, all divorced within 2 years. Terrence's hand shook as he looked at the documents. I don't understand. Why would she lie about that? Because the truth would reveal her pattern. I pulled out more papers. All 3 ex-husbands were successful men with widowed or elderly mothers who had property, just like you. Mama, stop. I can't stop, baby. Look at this. I showed him Helen Richardson's story, the police report, the loan documents. David's mother almost lost her house because of Vanessa. She manipulated David into taking out loans against his mother's property. This is crazy. Terrence stood up, pacing. You're saying my wife is some kind of con artist? I'm saying your wife has a decade-long pattern of targeting men like you to get to their mother's assets, and I have proof. I pulled out the statements I'd gotten from Anthony and the written testimony from Helen. These people don't know each other, Terrence, but their stories are identical. She love bombs. She isolates you from family. She creates constant financial pressure. She pushes for access to family property. And when she's taken everything she can, she leaves. Terrence sank back onto the couch, his head in his hands. No, Vanessa loves me. She's helping me build my future. Baby, look at me. I lifted his chin. When's the last time you talked to your cousins, your friends from Morehouse? When's the last time you made a decision without asking her permission? His eyes filled with tears. She says they're not supportive of our vision. That's isolation, baby. That's control. And the business, the $50,000 she wanted from me, that was going to be her exit money. She'd launch the business, drain it, then disappear. Just like she did with David, with Anthony, with James. Stop, Terrence shouted, standing up. Just stop. You don't know her like I do. You're right, I don't know her, but I know her pattern. I stood up, my voice rising. Terrence James Thompson, I am your mother. I carried you for 9 months. I raised you alone after your daddy died. I have loved you every single day of your life. Why would I make this up? What would I have to gain from lying to you? He stared at me, breathing hard. She said you were jealous, that you couldn't stand to see me happy with someone else. And you believe that? After everything I've done for you? I don't know what to believe anymore. He collapsed back on the couch. My head is spinning. Nothing makes sense. I sat beside him and took his hand. Baby, I know this is hard. I know you love her. But love doesn't mean ignoring the truth. Look at these documents. These are facts. These are court records, marriage certificates, police reports. This isn't me being jealous. This is her being dangerous. Terrence looked through the papers again, slower this time. I watched his face change as reality began to sink in. Denial, confusion, anger, heartbreak. 3 marriages, he whispered. She was married 3 times and never told me. Because if you knew, you'd ask questions. You'd look into her past. You'd find what I found. The business registration. She put herself as primary owner. His voice was hollow. She said it was for tax purposes. It was so she could control everything, control the money, control you. He looked up at me with tears streaming down his face. Mama, I'm so stupid. How did I not see this? You're not stupid, baby. You're in love. And she's a professional. This is what she does. She's had years of practice. Everything I told her, about you, about the house, about your retirement money, horror dawned on his face. I gave her all the information she needed. It's not your fault. Yes, it is. He stood up, angry now. I chose her over you. I believed her lies about you. I left you alone on Thanksgiving. What kind of son does that? The kind who's being manipulated by someone very dangerous. Terrence paced the room, running his hands over his head. The $68,000 you gave us? Where did it all go, Mama? I work a good job. Vanessa doesn't work. We should have savings, but we're always broke. Where did it all go? That's the question you need to ask her. She checks my bank account every day. She has all my passwords. She says it's because we're a team. He laughed bitterly. A team where I own 30%? He stopped pacing and looked at me. What do I do, Mama? If everything you're saying is true, what do I do? First, you protect yourself. We go see my lawyer tomorrow. We figure out how to get you out of this business deal. Then we talk about the marriage. The marriage. He said it like the word tasted bitter. I took vows, Mama, for better or worse. Baby, worse doesn't mean letting someone destroy your life. Sometimes love means knowing when to walk away. His phone buzzed. A text. He looked at it and his whole body tensed. It's Vanessa. She's on her way home. She left the salon early. Does she know I'm here? No, she thinks I'm at work. Then I need to leave. But Terrence, promise me something. Don't tell her about this conversation yet. Not until we have a plan. Can you do that? He nodded, but I could see the fear in his eyes. What if I can't pretend? What if she knows? You've been pretending to be happy for months. Pretend for one more day. I gathered my folder. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., my lawyer's office. Can you get away? I'll tell her I have a meeting at work. I hugged him tight. I love you, baby. We're gonna get through this. Mama? He held on to me. I'm sorry for everything, for not believing you, for choosing her, for Thanksgiving. I'm so sorry. Hush now. We'll fix this. Together. The next morning, Terrence showed up at Diane's office at 9:45 a.m. His eyes were red like he hadn't slept. Neither had I. Diane Foster didn't waste time. She laid out our options with the precision of a surgeon. Terrence, the good news is you're not legally liable for much. The business LLC is primarily in Vanessa's name. The office lease that Helen co-signed, your signature isn't on it. She forged your mother's name on the investment agreement, which is fraud. You're actually in a better position than the previous husbands. What's the bad news? Terrence asked. The bad news is you're married to her. In Georgia, that means she has access to your income, your credit, and potentially any assets you acquire. If you want to protect yourself, you need to file for divorce immediately. Terrence flinched. Divorce? I know it's hard, Diane said gently, but Mr. Thompson, this woman has destroyed 3 families before yours. She won't stop. She'll drain you dry and move on to the next victim. Do I confront her first? Tell her I know? Absolutely not, Diane and I said in unison. Diane continued. Women like Vanessa are unpredictable when cornered. She could destroy evidence, empty bank accounts.
Worse, she could claim you're abusing her and get a restraining order that keeps you from your own assets. We move first, we move fast, we move quietly. What do I do? Today, you open a new bank account at a different bank. You have your paycheck deposited there. You gather any important documents from the apartment: passport, birth certificate, social security card, anything she might use or hide. You do this when she's not home. She's always home, Terrence said. She doesn't work. She's there constantly. Then you create a reason for her to leave. Tell her you're taking her shopping. Big purchase, something she'd never miss. I spoke up. What about me? What do I do? You protect your assets. Today, we're filing a restraining order against Vanessa, prohibiting her from contacting you or coming near your property. We're also putting your house in a trust that Terrence can access after your passing, but that no spouse of his can ever touch. She's going to know something's up when she gets served with the restraining order, Terrence said. That's fine. By the time she's served, you'll have already filed for divorce. We're going to move on this like a military operation. Today, Terrence secures his documents and opens his account. Tomorrow, you file for divorce first thing in the morning. By noon, Beatrice's restraining order will be served. Vanessa won't have time to react. What if she gets violent? I asked. That's why Terrence will not be at the apartment when she's served. He'll stay with you, Mrs. Thompson. We'll have police on standby in case she tries to contact either of you. Terrence looked at me. Mama, I'm scared. I know, baby, but we're doing this together. After the meeting, Terrence and I sat in my car in the parking lot. He said, I can't believe this is my life. 6 months ago, I thought I had everything. Beautiful wife, future business. Now I find out my whole marriage is a lie. It's not your fault. Isn't it? I ignored the signs. You tried to warn me at Thanksgiving and I walked out. I chose her over you. You chose what you thought was love. That's human. She's the one who manipulated that love. She's the criminal, not you. He was quiet for a moment. What if I still love her, even knowing all this? My heart broke. Baby, you're allowed to love who you thought she was. You're allowed to grieve that person. But you also have to accept that person never existed. The woman you fell in love with was a character she created, a role she played. How do I do this, Mama? How do I go home tonight and look her in the eye knowing what I know? You think about your future. You think about the life you want. And you remember you're not the first man she's done this to. You think about David Richardson living with his mother at 35, in therapy, on medication. You think about Anthony Monroe, $35,000 in debt with ruined credit. You think about James Butler, who I couldn't even track down because he's disappeared completely. That's your future if you stay. Terrence nodded slowly. Okay, I'll do it. What's the plan? We spent the next hour strategizing. Terrence would tell Vanessa he was taking her to Lenox Mall for an early Christmas shopping spree. While she was trying on clothes, he'd slip away, go back to the apartment, and grab his important documents. He'd meet me at a storage unit I'd rent, where we'd lock everything up. What about my clothes? My stuff? We'll get it later, with police escort if necessary. Right now, documents are priority. Everything else is replaceable. That afternoon, I watched Terrence's location on my phone as he executed the plan. I saw him at the mall, then moving back toward the apartment. My heart raced the entire time. 40 minutes later, he texted, "Got everything. She just called asking where I am. Said I ran into my old manager having coffee. She bought it." I exhaled for the first time in an hour. He arrived at the storage unit with 2 garbage bags full of documents. We locked them up together. Phase 1 complete, I said. That evening, Terrence went home to Vanessa like nothing had changed. He texted me around 9 p.m. This is the hardest thing I've ever done. She's talking about baby names, about the house we'll buy with your investment. I want to scream. I texted back, tomorrow it ends. Just get through tonight. At 6 a.m. the next morning, Terrence was the first person at the courthouse when it opened.
He filed for divorce. Irreconcilable differences. By 8 a.m., he was at my house. "It's done," he said, his hand shaking. "The papers are filed." "How do you feel?" "Terrified, relieved, sick, all of it." At noon, a process server knocked on Vanessa's door. Terrence and I watched from my living room, tracking it all through Diane's updates. My phone rang at 12:15. Unknown number. I didn't answer. It rang again. And again. 10 times in 5 minutes. Then Terrence's phone started. He'd blocked her number, but she was calling from other phones. Then came the text from random numbers. "How dare you? You're making a huge mistake. Your mother poisoned you against me. You owe me $50,000 for the business. I'll take everything you have. You'll regret this." Each message more unhinged than the last. At 1 p.m., she showed up at my house. Terrence and I watched through the window as she pounded on the door. "Beatrice, I know you're in there. You did this. You destroyed my marriage." I called the police. They arrived within 10 minutes. "Ma'am, there's a restraining order. You need to leave this property immediately." "That's my mother-in-law. I have a right." "No, ma'am, you don't. If you don't leave now, you'll be arrested for violating a court order." I watched from behind the curtain as Vanessa's perfect mask finally shattered completely. She screamed obscenities. She kicked my mailbox. She had to be physically escorted to her car by the officers. After she left, Terrence broke down. He sobbed like a child, and I held him like I used to when he was little and had nightmares. "It's over, baby. The nightmare is over." But I was wrong. The nightmare wasn't over. It was just beginning. Because Vanessa Monroe didn't go quietly. She went nuclear. For 3 days, things were quiet. Too quiet. Vanessa didn't call, didn't text, didn't show up. It was like she'd vanished. "I don't trust this," Sharon said when she came over for coffee. "Women like that don't just disappear." She was right. On the 4th day, Terrence got an email from HR at Delta. He was being investigated for sexual harassment. An anonymous complaint had been filed claiming he'd made inappropriate advances toward a female coworker. "This is insane," Terrence said, his voice panicked. "I've never done anything like that. Everyone at my job knows me." Diane was on the phone within minutes. "This is Vanessa. She's trying to destroy your credibility. Have you had any recent interactions with female coworkers that she could twist?" "Just normal work stuff, meetings, projects, nothing inappropriate." "She doesn't need truth. She just needs to plant doubt." "Who's the coworker who filed the complaint?" "They won't tell me. It's anonymous." "Of course it is. Terrence, you need to request all documentation. Every email, every message, every alleged incident. Make them show proof." That same afternoon, I got a call from my bank. Someone had attempted to access my account online using my information. The security system caught it, but they needed to verify it wasn't me. "No," I said, my stomach dropping. "That wasn't me." "We've locked your account for security. You'll need to come in person with ID to unlock it." Vanessa was attacking both of us simultaneously. That evening, Terrence's phone buzzed with a notification. Someone had posted on his Facebook page. A long, emotional message from Vanessa's account. "I'm heartbroken to share that my husband Terrence has left me after I discovered his gambling addiction. For months, I tried to help him. I even borrowed money from his mother to cover his debts. But he refused treatment. He chose his addiction over our marriage. I'm devastated, but I had to protect myself. Please pray for him. He needs help." "What?" Terrence shouted, showing me the post. "Gambling addiction? I've never gambled in my life." But the damage was already done. Comments were flooding in. Friends and family who didn't know the truth were sending prayers and sympathies to Vanessa. "She's rewriting the narrative," Diane explained when we called her. She's making herself the victim and Terrence the villain. This is classic Darvo. Deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. What do we do? I asked. We fight back with facts. Terrence, post a simple statement. The allegations in my wife's post are false. I filed for divorce due to her documented pattern of fraud, which my attorney can verify. I will not be making further public statements. Terrence posted it. Within an hour, Vanessa responded with another post, this time with tears in a video. My husband is lying about me to cover his addiction and his abuse. I have nowhere to go. His mother has turned him against me with false accusations. I'm scared and alone. If anyone can help me find a place to stay, please reach out. My phone exploded with messages from distant relatives and acquaintances. People I hadn't talked to in years were asking me why I was kicking out my pregnant daughter-in-law. Pregnant? I gasped. She's not pregnant. She will be by tomorrow, Sharon said darkly. Or at least she'll claim to be. It's the perfect victim card. Sure enough, the next morning, Vanessa posted a sonogram. Despite everything, I'm trying to stay strong for our baby. Terrence doesn't know yet. I was waiting for the right time to tell him, but now I don't know if he'll even care.
Terrence stared at the post in horror. That's not possible. We've been careful. Very careful. And the date on that sonogram would mean she got pregnant 2 months ago. We weren't even... Mama, we hadn't been intimate in over a month. It's fake, I said firmly. She probably got it off the internet or from a friend. Diane needs to see this. Diane's response was swift. We demand immediate proof. Medical records, doctor's name. We file a motion with the court demanding verification. If she's lying about pregnancy to manipulate the divorce, that's fraud. But Vanessa was 3 steps ahead. By that evening, she'd posted that she'd miscarried due to the stress and was devastated. The sympathy poured in. People were calling Terrence a monster for causing the miscarriage. I can't take this anymore, Terrence said, his head in his hands. She's destroying my reputation. My job is investigating me. People think I'm an abuser and a gambling addict. How do I fight someone who just makes up lies? We expose her, I said. It's time to go public with everything. That night, Diane, Terrence, and I worked on a comprehensive post. We included court documents showing Vanessa's 3 previous marriages, statements from Helen Richardson and Anthony Monroe about their experiences, the police reports, the LLC documents showing her fraud, everything. Terrence posted it on Facebook at midnight. The truth about Vanessa Monroe. The response was immediate. The post went viral. Local news picked it up. Atlanta woman accused of serial marriage fraud. Helen Richardson called the next morning. Mrs. Thompson, I've been getting calls from reporters. So has Anthony. We're all willing to go on record. This woman needs to be stopped. But Vanessa still had one card left to play. The nuclear option. 2 days later, Terrence got a call from the police. Vanessa had filed a report claiming he assaulted her during an argument. She had photos of bruises. She was requesting an emergency protective order. I never touched her, Terrence shouted. Mama, I swear on Daddy's grave, I never laid a hand on that woman. I believe you, baby. But she has photos. How does she have photos of bruises? Diane's voice was grim when she called back. She either gave them to herself or got them from somewhere else. I've seen this before. Abusers who claim to be victims often create false evidence. But Terrence, we need to be smart. Don't go anywhere alone. Make sure you have alibis. If she's filing false police reports, she's desperate. The protective order hearing was set for 3 days later. If the judge granted it, Terrence would be barred from his own apartment, from his job,
from his entire life. We spent those 3 days preparing. Diane gathered phone records showing Terrence was never at the location Vanessa claimed the assault happened. We got security footage from my building showing he'd been with me. We compiled everything. The morning of the hearing, I dressed in my best suit. Terrence wore his Sunday church clothes. We walked into that courtroom ready for war. Vanessa was already there with her lawyer, dabbing her eyes with tissue. She dressed down. No designer clothes, just a simple dress, playing the victim perfectly. The judge reviewed both sides. Vanessa's lawyer presented the photos of bruises, her tearful testimony about being terrified of Terrence. Then Diane stood up. Your Honor, my client has phone records, security footage, and multiple witnesses proving he was not at the location where this alleged assault happened. Furthermore, we have evidence that Miss Monroe has a documented history of making false accusations against ex-husbands. We request that the court order a full investigation into these claims and consider charges of filing a false police report. Diane presented everything. The testimonies from the ex-husbands, the pattern, the timeline that proved Vanessa's story was impossible. The judge looked at Vanessa with new eyes. Miss Monroe, these are serious allegations. If you filed a false report, you could face criminal charges. Vanessa's mask slipped. Just for a second. But I saw it. The cold calculation behind her tears. I may have been confused about the timeline, the stress of everything. Were you assaulted or not? The judge asked sharply. Silence. Miss Monroe, answer the question. I felt threatened, she said weakly. That's not what you claimed in your police report. You claimed physical assault. The room was silent. Finally, Vanessa's lawyer whispered something to her. I'd like to withdraw my request for a protective order, Vanessa said quietly. The judge was not pleased. Miss Monroe, filing false reports wastes police resources and destroys lives. I'm referring this matter to the district attorney. This hearing is dismissed. We walked out of that courtroom victorious. But as we passed Vanessa in the hallway, she looked at me with pure hatred. This isn't over, she hissed. But she was wrong. It was over. Because the DA was about to get involved, and Vanessa Monroe's house of lies was about to collapse completely.
The district attorney's office moved fast. Within a week, they'd opened a full investigation into Vanessa Monroe. The false police report was just the beginning. Once they started digging, they found a gold mine of fraud. Forged documents, identity theft, wire fraud, false statements to financial institutions. The charges piled up. Detective Marshall, the lead investigator, called me personally. Mrs. Thompson, you and your son may have saved more lives than you know. We've connected Vanessa to 5 other victims across 3 states. This woman has been running this con for over a decade. 5 others? I could barely breathe. That we know of. There are probably more who never came forward. Your documentation helped us build a case that's ironclad. Helen Richardson flew to Atlanta for the preliminary hearing. So did Anthony Monroe. Even David Richardson came, though Helen told me it took every ounce of courage he had. We all sat together in that courtroom. 6 families, 6 destroyed lives, all because of one woman's greed. Vanessa walked in wearing orange. No designer clothes now, no perfect hair, just a county jail jumpsuit and handcuffs. When she saw all of us sitting together, her face went pale. The judge read the charges. 18 counts of fraud, 5 counts of identity theft, 3 counts of filing false police reports,
2 counts of forgery. Vanessa's public defender tried to argue for bail. Your Honor, my client has no prior convictions. She's not a flight risk. Diane stood up. Your Honor, the defendant has used at least 4 different names in the past 10 years. She has no permanent address. She has demonstrated a pattern of fleeing when confronted with evidence. She is absolutely a flight risk. The judge agreed. Bail denied. Trial date set for 60 days from now. As they led Vanessa away, she looked back at us one more time. The mask was completely gone now. No tears, no victim act, just cold, calculated hatred. Outside the courthouse, the 6 of us stood together. Helen hugged me tight. We did it, she whispered. We stopped her. Anthony shook Terrence's hand. You're lucky, man. You got out faster than any of us did. Your mama saved you. Terrence put his arm around me. She did. She really did. David Richardson was quiet, but before they left, he pulled Terrence aside. I watched them talk for a long time. 2 survivors, 2 men who'd loved the wrong woman. When they finished, Terrence came back with tears in his eyes. What did he say? I asked. He said it gets better. Slowly, but it does get better. And he thanked me for helping expose her so she couldn't do this to anyone else. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks later, uncontested. Vanessa signed the papers from jail. Terrence didn't get anything from the marriage, but he didn't want anything. He just wanted out. The business LLC was dissolved. The office lease that Helen had co-signed was terminated with the property owner's sympathy once they learned the full story. Helen wouldn't lose everything after all. The $68,000 I'd given Vanessa was gone. The DA traced some of it to offshore accounts, but most had been spent on designer clothes, luxury trips, and maintaining her facade. I'd never see that money again. But you know what? I didn't care. My son was safe. That was worth every penny. Terrence moved back in with me temporarily. We needed the time together to heal, to rebuild, to remember who we were before Vanessa. At first, he was broken. He'd wake up from nightmares. He'd question every decision he'd made. He started therapy with Dr. Chen 3 times a week. I fell in love with a ghost, he told me one evening as we sat on the porch. Everything I loved about her was manufactured. Her laugh, her interests, her personality, it was all designed to hook me. That's not your fault, baby. I know. Dr. Chen keeps telling me that, but it's hard not to feel stupid. You're not stupid, you're human, and you had the strength to walk away when you learned the truth. That's not stupid, that's brave. Slowly, week by week, I watched my son come back to life. The darkness under his eyes faded. He started eating again, started laughing again, starting being Terrence again. He reconnected with his college friends, started going back to Sunday dinner at church, even started dating again, though he took it very slow and very carefully. I told her everything on the first date, about Vanessa, about the whole mess. I figured if she runs, better to know now. What did she say? She said her sister went through something similar, not as extreme, but manipulative relationship. She understood, and she appreciated the honesty. 6 months after Vanessa's arrest, the trial began. It lasted 2 weeks. The prosecution presented mountains of evidence. All 6 families testified. The jury deliberated for only 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. At sentencing, the judge looked at Vanessa with disgust. Miss Monroe, you have destroyed families. You have traumatized victims. You have shown absolutely no remorse. You are a predator, and you need to be kept away from society. 12 years in federal prison, 5 years probation after release. Restitution to all victims, though we all knew we'd never see that money. As they led her away, Vanessa looked at me one last time. I met her eyes, and I smiled. That evening, all of us victims and our families gathered at my house for dinner. I cooked a feast: turkey, ham, collard greens, mac and cheese, cornbread, sweet potato pie, a proper celebration. We sat around my dining room table, the one where Vanessa had demanded my house just a year ago. But now it was filled with survivors, with fighters, with people who'd refused to be victims. Helen raised her glass to Beatrice Thompson, who started this fight and brought us all together. To Beatrice, everyone echoed. And to all of us, I added, for surviving, for fighting back, for protecting the next family she might have destroyed. We toasted, we ate, we laughed, we told stories about how we'd rebuilt our lives. David Richardson was back in therapy, making progress. He'd started a support group for men who'd been in abusive relationships. Anthony Monroe had paid off his debts and rebuilt his credit. He'd even written a book about his experience to help other victims recognize warning signs. Helen Richardson had downsized to a smaller house, but was at peace. I have my son back, she said. That's all that matters. And Terrence? My beautiful boy was healing, slowly but surely. A year after Vanessa's sentencing, Terrence proposed to Jasmine. He asked my permission first, like his daddy had taught him. Mama, I know I messed up before, but I've learned, I've grown. Jasmine is nothing like Vanessa. She's real, she's honest. She has her own career, her own money, her own life. She doesn't need me for anything except love. And I love her for real this time, not for who I think she is, but for who she actually is. I looked at this woman he'd brought home. Jasmine was a pediatric nurse, smart, independent, kind. She loved her own mother fiercely, which told me everything I needed to know. And most importantly, she looked at Terrence like he was a person, not a meal ticket. Baby, I have your blessing, but you're not making the same mistake twice. Before you marry this girl, I'm doing a background check. Jasmine laughed. Mrs. Thompson, I already printed out my credit report, my employment history, and references from my previous relationships. I figured you'd want to see them. I loved her immediately. Their wedding was small. Just close family and friends. No $65,000 price tag. Just love and honesty and joy. I sat in the front row and cried happy tears, real happy tears this time. During the reception, Terrence pulled me onto the dance floor for the mother-son dance. As we swayed to Luther Vandross, he whispered, "Thank you, Mama, for not giving up on me, for fighting for me, even when I didn't deserve it. Baby, you always deserved it. You just forgot for a little while." I'll never forget again. I promise. Now, 2 years after that nightmare Thanksgiving, I'm sitting on my porch in my house that nobody can take from me. The house Leonard bought, the house I fought to keep. Terrence and Jasmine just had their first baby, a beautiful girl they named Beatrice after me. My grandbaby. I hold her in my arms and think about everything we survived. The manipulation, the lies, the court battles, the fear. But we made it. We won. And more than that, we helped stop Vanessa from destroying anyone else. If you're reading this story, if you see yourself in it, please hear me. You are not alone. You are not crazy. You are not wrong for protecting yourself. If someone is draining you financially, isolating you from family, manipulating your children against you, that is abuse. Document everything. Get lawyers, get support, and fight back. Don't let anyone, not even your own child's spouse, take what's yours. Not your money, not your home, not your dignity, not your peace. I'm 63 years old. I've survived losing my husband, raising my son alone, nearly losing everything to a con artist, and fighting the legal battle of my life. And you know what? I'm still here, still standing, still strong. My name is Beatrice Thompson. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, in the house my husband bought, that I kept. And nobody will ever take it from me again. To all the mothers out there dealing with toxic daughter-in-laws or sons-in-laws, to all the families being torn apart by manipulators, to all the people who think they're alone in this fight, you're not alone. We're here. We survived, and so will you. Stand firm, protect yourself, and remember, the truth always wins in the end. God bless you all, and remember, sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to say no.